Hello everyone, my name is Jose Avalos, aka Dr. Logic8.
And I'm Stuart, aka Crazy by Nick.
And in today's tutorial, we will learn about the dual action trigger and the Logic and, two toys that can help make your toy boxes be even more awesome. You know, there's times when you make a toy box when you want things to happen only after you've done some other things. So for example, open a door if you've pushed a series of buttons or defeated a couple of enemies, and only after that, not beforehand. So the toys that allow you to do this are the dual action trigger, which is an old toy from previous Infinity games, and the Logic and, which is a brand new toy for 3.0. So for that, we will go to the Creativi-toys category, and we have the dual action trigger, which is that box with two arrows coming from it, and we also have the Logic and. The way that these toys work is more or less similar. So this one will only fire like the complete signal, or only will do whatever you tell it to do after it has received two inputs from any Creativi-toy. Whereas the Logic and, it will fire depending on how many inputs you have connected to this. So for example, if you have connected 10 toys to this, or one, then it will fire. It's a more general version of the dual action trigger.
So what you're saying is that the dual action trigger, instead of just having multiples lined up together, making something happen, you just need that one toy now?
Yes. Yeah, you can actually do that too. But now we're going to show how the two of them work. So depending if you only need two inputs or whatever many you need, you're covered in both cases. So the thing we will have now is a classic puzzle where you have a lock door in here. So we will just place it. And we have two pressure plates on the floor, which should be somewhere around here. They should be... Here we go. Pressure plate 1. And now, just to make sure that they are different, I'm going to put a second one. And also, I'm going to place two of these, the rocks. It should be this one right here. So the door will only open after we have placed both of these rocks on top of these pressure plates. So the way that it's going to work is we select the pressure plate, in this case the Brave one, and we say new logic connection, and once it has been activated, and activated plays only after we have put the rock on it, I will send an input 1 to the dual action trigger. It can be input 1, input 2, which we will do with the second pressure plate, or reset, which basically means clear out all the inputs you have received so far, and you will it's almost as if we had put this brand new, fresh from the ribbon. So we will say input 1, and now the second pressure plate, so once it has been activated as well, I will send input 2. And now what we will do with the dual action trigger is new logic connection, and once it has been complete, which in that case it would be after activating both pressure plates, we will open the door. Now the problem that you might have noticed if you have been following us so far is that I don't really need the rocks. As of right now, I can just step on this one, which will send the input 1 to the dual action trigger, and then later step on this one as well to the dual action trigger, and that will open the door. So what we will do is that in case we have lifted one of these rocks from the pressure plates, we are basically going to reset and say, hey, we are really not done. So for that, we will select the pressure plate, and now new logic connection deactivated. And now we select the dual action trigger and say reset.
Now you need to do that on both of them?
Yes. Yeah, that's something because you don't know which one you're going to activate or lift the rock from.
All right.
So now if I step on this one first, now you will notice that there is a little pulse coming from the dual action trigger, which means that at least one input has been activated. But now if I step off of, now both the dual action trigger has been reset and the door is still closed. So now if I step on the door is not going to open. So for that we're going to be able to use the rock, use the second rock, and the door opens. Boom.
Very nice. So,
Yeah.
Can you also hook it up so if you remove the rocks, the door's shut?
We technically can do that, actually. So for that, what we would need to do is that once the dual action trigger has been deactivated, we select the door and we say close. So now if I take it off, the door is closed. So the door is only going to be open, well, and now it reset everything. So it would have to place both rocks on both pressure plates. So you might have noticed that if we place these two rocks again from scratch, the door didn't open. And that is because of the properties of the dual action trigger itself. The property in question that we have is auto reset. It basically tells you after it has been completed whether you want it to reset so that completed signal can fire off again. And the default value of it is off. So the door opened once, and actually it fired since we saw the door open, but since auto reset was off, it cannot fire that connection again, even if I sent inputs 1 and 2. So to avoid this kind of situation, you have to set auto reset on, and I didn't do that beforehand. So that's something you need to be careful of when you're making these kinds of connections using dual action trigger or the logic AND. Make sure that auto reset is on if you want the signal, once it's completed, to actually fire more than once.
So it's a good idea to check the properties before you start doing your connections.
That's a very good pro tip for life. So that's it for the dual action trigger. Now what we will do with the logic AND is push a series of buttons and also defeat an enemy. So what we will do for that is go to the Creativi-toys themselves. And now what we will do is say, for example, pressing an action button, also stepping on a trigger. I'll put another action button in here, and also I'm gonna make an enemy. And only once I've stepped on all of these and defeated one of the enemies, the door is going to actually open. So for that, we will go to New Logic Connection pressed in the action button. And now we select the logic AND. And now you will notice that we don't have an input 1 or input 2. We only have input. And that's because we don't know how many inputs this toy can receive. It only depends on how many you actually connect it to. And reset, it works the same way as the reset message in the dual action trigger. So now we will go to input. So now we have that one. Now let's say that when the player steps in here, so New Logic Connection stepped on, in this case, any player, I will also send a signal in here, input. Now I have this third button, which is going to be the same thing. But now I'll also have it so that this toy also generates an enemy. So when that one is pressed, I will select the enemy generator. And let's say I'll go with an Agrabah guard. And finally, once the enemy has been defeated, so enemy defeated, I'll also send an input to this toy. So for that. So as you can see, the logic AND is going to depend on pressing this button, stepping on this trigger, pushing this button, and defeating the enemy that will come out of it. And finally, what we need to do is that New Logic Connection, and once it has been complete, just like in the dual action trigger, we will open the door. And also, before we actually test this, we can see the properties, and the property is the exact same one as the one found in the dual action trigger, auto reset. So it's on, it's off right now, sorry, and that means that once it fires, it will only ever be active once. So if I push all the buttons again and I defeat that enemy, it's not going to happen again. So now let's actually try this out. So input 1. Another input. Push the button which will create the enemy. And now let's defeat the enemy.
And the door opened.
Yeah. So as you can see, you can use these two toys, the dual action trigger and the logic and, to make sure that the player does the things you actually want them to do before progressing through the stage or making the player celebrate or whatever it is you want to do. And well, that's it for this tutorial. I hope you have enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, please let us know in the comments or in the forums. Well, thank you for watching.